Welcome, everybody, to the Sharpe Way Show. I'm so happy you're giving me a little chunk of your evening. Yes, Monday. Ask me anything. Absolutely, as I try to do every Monday, to give everyone who's watching a little bit of piece of me to ask any question they want. But I usually start it off with something that I find interesting or odd, just kind of get the conversation going. And I have that again this evening. And the part I want to bring up is Fareed Zakaria last weekend. And I know I used to do this on Tuesdays, but I'm doing it right now because I think it's something that we don't always think about on how government works and how people think it works. Let me bring this piece up. It's a small segment, but I think you'll get what I'm talking about as I bring it up. And of course, remember, Fareed does not like Trump. So he's always going to do anti-Trump stuff. That's who he is. So those of you who like Trump, just please walk past that and listen to the data.
While Donald Trump claimed he wanted to make America great again, President Biden is attempting to actually do it. Trump's slogan got Americans thinking nostalgically about the 1950s and early 1960s, when the U.S. dominated the world and its economy produced rising wages for workers and executives alike.
That's true, right? I mean, that part is very true. There were many good things in America in those times, right? I mean, there were also obviously bad things, but there were good things too. So many people, when they hear about how America was, doing so well in the 50s and 60s, will immediately say, well, it's because, we had a great president or a great economy or a good tax structure. Well, some of that's probably true. The biggest reason is we were basically a monopoly. That's the reality. We were basically a monopoly. After World War II, most of the world's devastated. Who else can build anything but us? We can build stuff. Literally half of the industrialized world is really bombed into nothing. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why we did so well. It wasn't only because of whatever he's going to say.
A defining feature of those years was federal investment in infrastructure, scientific research, and education.
That's true.
By contrast, Washington in recent years has mostly spent money to fund private consumption by giving.
This is a valid piece also, right? Most of the money was built on things like infrastructure and such. But why? Again, what was the reason for that? Most people would ask, why in the world did Eisenhower go crazy on the highway system, for example, something like that? It goes back to World War II, right? They were preparing for war. Eisenhower saw how the German system works so well in Germany. I'm not joking. This is a fact. If you want to make this, if you're making it up, do your own homework. And he was like, oh yeah, we need that too. We want to be able to move our troops across America if we need to. So there is something to say about that, but that's what he was trying to do. We were also trying to build infrastructure because we were trying to fight the Russians, the Soviet Union. So there were reasons why we were doing that. The problem, of course, is now all we can do is write checks. And actually building something, we're terrible at that.
People tax cuts or transfer payments. Biden's infrastructure bill is the first major fiscal program in 5 decades to focus once again on investment. When you look at federal spending as a whole, it seems to have risen significantly over the last few decades.
Because federal spending has. And look, this is adjusted for inflation, how it's still going up. So federal spending keeps going up, right? And most of it, as you can see, is entitlements.
Decades. But the composition of that spending tells the real story.
Mm-hmm.
Most of that increase is due to sharp rises in entitlement programs like Medicare and Medicaid.
Bingo, Medicare and Medicaid. It's amazing how the more government gets involved in healthcare, it gets more expensive. Isn't that weird? So government gets involved in healthcare, it gets super expensive. I don't know why. Okay, let's keep going.
Core investment spending has actually dropped substantially. The U.S. used to spend as much as 3% of GDP on transport and water infrastructure.
Okay.
That number is now closer to 2%.
We got to pay for entitlements.
The U.S. used to be the world's unquestioned leader in basic science and technology. China is now almost on par with it in spending.
I'm not sure I want to follow a Chinese model, but I appreciate the comparison. And not just that, do I really want to say, well, we could be spending more on infrastructure when we're spending so much on, say, the military industrial complex?
Biden's plan harkens back to the New Deal. During the Great Depression, the Works Progress
This is
Administration
true.
built or improved almost 1,000 airports,
Mhm.
creating the backbone of the modern airline industry.
Yep.
Biden's plan will help create a modern electric vehicle system by funding a network of 500,000 chargers.
He is going to hook Elon Musk up again. Elon Musk, the grifter in chief. Well done, Elon.
Across the nation. The 1936 Rural Electrification Act brought electricity to rural areas.
But the problem I have with these is not that they weren't good. I mean, government does wind up doing good things sometimes. Of course it does. It does wind up helping people. Absolutely. The question is, was this the only way to make it happen? Right? We basically forced companies to do so. Was this the only way to make it happen? I would argue no.
Biden proposes doing the same with high-speed internet, which he argues is the equivalent in today's economy. Now, the New Deal was bigger relative to the size of the economy at the time, but it is really the only valid comparison with what the Biden administration is proposing. Where the spirit of the New Deal is sorely needed today is in the cost efficiency and transparency of these kinds of projects.
Now we bring it up. The cost efficiency. This is my point. This goes back to what I talk about when it comes to Bastiat. I believe it was Bastiat who said, just because I don't want government to do it doesn't mean I don't want it done. Right? I want all of our kids to be educated. Doesn't mean I necessarily want the government to do it all. I want all of us to be happy and healthy. Doesn't mean I want government to try to enforce that. I would love infrastructure to be built. I want it to be built. It doesn't mean I want government to do so.
Projects. America used to be able to build things with astonishing speed.
Yes.
The George Washington Bridge in Manhattan, at the time the world's longest suspension bridge, was built in 4 years ahead of schedule and under budget.
Ahead of schedule and under budget. We don't do that anymore.
By contrast, just adding 2 miles of new subway lines and 3 new stations in Manhattan took, depending on when you start counting, between 10 and 100 years.
Yes, he's not joking. We spoke about that 100 years ago. We actually started building it about 10 years ago, and now it's done. 15 years ago.
It ended up costing $4.5 billion by the time it opened in 2017. Building infrastructure in America is now insanely expensive.
Which is why I'm against this. This is what drives me crazy. What drives me crazy about people like Fareed, and I like Fareed. I think he's a smart guy, and he cares, and he wants to make things right. But he will sit here and attack government all day long. It doesn't work. I've shown you. Oh, it's bad. Doesn't work. Terrible. You know what we're going to do? Give it more money. I hear that constantly. Never do I hear a brand new idea. Let's change it. It doesn't work. Let's change it. What I hear every time from him is government's failing. It's bad. He's going to tell us now why it's so bad. And then say, give him more money.
Another project in New York, an ongoing expansion of the Long Island Railroad, is the most expensive stretch of subway track on Earth.
On Earth! Our government, and this is what I get from many people on the left will say something. Well, Larry, that's because you want workers to die, or you don't care about the workers or such. No, in the globe, there are other countries that have safety regulations as much as us. Some don't, but there are those who do. France and Britain, they have tons of safety regulations. They have unions. They have the same issues that we have. Yet they get it done a whole lot cheaper.
To the New York Times, coming in at 7 times the world average.
7 times.
New York is particularly bad.
You hear that, everybody? New York is particularly bad. Freed. I knew that. I was very aware of that. New York is a special kind of corrupt, a special kind of bad.
League of its own. But American infrastructure often costs several times more than it does in Europe. Paris, Rome, and Madrid have managed to build subway extensions for less. Yet those cities are hundreds of years older than any in the U.S.
100%.
Many of them have many unions.
Absolutely.
And tons of regulations.
Yes.
So none of the usual excuses will do.
Ain't going to work.
One recent study found that the cost of building U.S. interstate highways quadrupled from the 1960s to the 1990s, though material and labor costs have barely budged after a...
So materials and labor costs have barely budged. Moved at all. But the cost per mile's tripled. So you know what we should do? Give the government more money. And people laughed at me when I said, why in the world aren't we letting literally Domino's Pizza fix our potholes? They'll fix it for cheaper. In fact, for free. They'll do it for advertising. And people get mad. Oh, Larry, I don't want to have advertisement on my street. Good, then have potholes. Do that instead. What is your answer? Give this giant piece of garbage more money? Give this thing that doesn't work more money. That's the answer. No. Another answer. Well, Larry, I don't want to have, Domino's Pizza on the side of my road. Okay, great. You got a crappy road and it destroys your car. You win. You'll have a nicer looking crappy road, I guess, without a billboard on it. Okay, you win. There's no other answer that I can see. If there is one, my eyes are open.
Accounting for inflation. There are lots of reasons for this. Multiple authorities, each with a veto, endless.
Multiple authorities because we keep making commission upon commission upon commission. We don't require them. And no one is responsible for saying yes. Everyone is responsible for saying no.
Rules and reviews, and most likely corruption.
Yes.
The NYU scholar Alon Levy did a detailed analysis of the country's crazy costs and concluded that fundamentally they were so high because Americans were unwilling or unable to look around the world and try to learn from other countries.
I literally said this when I talked about how to fix the MTA in 2018 when I ran for governor. If it's still on my LarrySharpe.com/policy page, if you care to go check it out, the MTA, I talk about exactly this. And the reason why we didn't shut the L line down in New York City is because of my idea to find a new way of making that work from London. They actually followed my idea. I know, crazy. They followed my idea and we didn't shut the L line down. So regular everyday people who live in Brooklyn and Manhattan still get a subway because we actually did this. We looked someplace else, which is what I said 3 years ago that we're not doing.
American exceptionalism, in this case, had led to an exceptional, uniquely bad system for building infrastructure.
That's the piece. And again, his answer, I'll get out of this for now. I'll take some questions. But you see my point. They just keep going down this road no matter what happens. So let me move down. User 1, could you please explain in depth detail what it is you do to get earned income? And could you please explain in depth detail what it is you get passive income? No, I'm not going to tell you everything that I do to make money. Of course not. But will I give you in general? Sure, absolutely. Generally speaking, how I get passive income is by creating a personality that allows, and a personality and a social media presence that allows people to constantly reach out to me without me having to reach out to them. So most of my business during the day, during my day job, I actually don't do any marketing. I do things like this, and the phone rings, luckily for me, or the email comes in, or the request from Facebook comes in, and that's how most of my work comes in. That's how I get most of my references, my referrals, and my business now. My day job, what I do now, mostly is coaching. I do some training, but because of COVID and the lockdowns, I've shifted most of my business model into coaching. I didn't do that before. Coaching was a very small part of my business. Probably if you looked at my business as 100%, maybe 20% was coaching, less. Most of it was either corporate training, some actual training in colleges. I taught at Yale, Columbia, Baruch, and some of it at John Jay College also. And some of it was through consulting with small business and big businesses. So that was what most of my work was. Since last March with the shutdowns, almost all of it's coaching. Probably 90% of 80%, 90% is coaching, and some of it's still online training. I do some online training. Most of it is somehow in emotional intelligence or in emotional communication. So that means leadership and or sales. I would say now most of my stuff is in leadership, a small part's in sales. When I first started this business in 2004, about 17 years ago, the vast majority was sales and almost none of it was leadership. Now most of it is leadership. So I hope I answered your question. So what is the end game to the culture war for both sides? There is no end game. The war is not supposed to end. This is 1984. The war is meant to continue forever in perpetuity. The more the war it goes on, the culture war goes on. We fight over things that really don't matter anywhere near as much as other things. We fight over things. It's distraction war, right? It's proxy war, distraction war that allows us to look at other things so that the left and right keep attacking each other, keeping us divided and keeping us afraid that we're going to lose our culture or lose respect or lose something. And in reality, we're losing every other part, everything that matters to us. So it's never supposed to end. It's supposed to go on forever. That's the goal. So is an infrastructure more of a state or local issue? In theory, it is, right? But the problem is the budgets are so strained that they always wait for federal funds because the federal government just prints more money. So theoretically, Christopher, you're correct. In actual practice, it's heavily federal based because the local communities don't have any money. So they ask for federal money. The federal money just cranks up, makes magical money from the Fed. Let's make more bazillions. And boom, there we go. And right on time, Pete, there's the national debt. $28 trillion. We broke 28 trillion. It was 27. Now it's 28. That's the reason why, Paul. We just crank out money and there we go. So yes, that's it. So see if I can grab a couple more. What's my favorite color? My favorite colors change a lot. I was very much into art as a kid and as a teenager. A little fact that many people don't know is I actually sold 2 of my paintings when I was 17 years old. I majored in art in high school. Painter, draw, an artist, but never pursued it after that. People say, Larry, you must be a great artist. No, I'm a good salesman, so I could sell a painting. I wasn't that great, but I was an okay artist. Not bad, but not great. So my colors have changed a lot. I tend to like greens is the color I tend to like, and gray. But I mix and match a lot with colors. I don't really have a favorite one. So if you're vaccinated, why do you care that I'm not? I don't, Pete. I don't at all. Johnson says, happy Monday, Larry. Happy Monday to you too. Yes. AJ says, this is going to sound like a dumb question, but did you get your COVID shot or are you going to get it? I have not gotten it yet. I don't know whether I'm on the line or on the list for getting it yet. I probably will. I haven't really decided yet. I'm just letting people get it. I'm not really at risk, if that makes any sense. I'm not really at risk. And my kids aren't at risk at all. Low risk. I shouldn't say not at risk. That's incorrect. We're very low risk. So I think I'm low on the list, and I'm fine with that. Whenever it happens, it happens. So I'm not anti-vax. I'm anti-passport, and I'm anti-mandate. But if you want to get a vaccine, get a vaccine. Good for you, man. I like it. To Pete's point, if he gets a vaccine, awesome. If you don't, awesome. All good. So yes. Avi says, government creates a problem, and what is the solution? More government. Yes. Even Dumb and Dumber couldn't go with this stupidity. That's perfect. Yes, absolutely. Let's see. Jonathan says, I might get it when I'm satisfied the people who really need it are vaccinated. Yeah, I'm the same way, Jonathan. I'm not in a rush to get it. No one in my family is high risk. I have 2 elderly people who are high risk, and they already got vaccinated. They're both in their 80s with pre-existing conditions, so they are really at risk. So they already got it. So let them get it. And when my time comes, whenever that is. I'm in no rush. I'm in no rush at all. So, all right, let's see if I can keep going here. Fareed once said Trump felt like a president when he bombed Syria. Yeah, terrible. Absolutely. Yeah, terrible. Just so bad. So anyway, yes. Jonathan says profit motive is not equivalent to a Faustian bargain in all cases. Okay. Not sure where that's going. Not sure where I'm going. Yeah. We need more mainstream media held responsible for lying and misleading the public. This is a hard one, right? How do you do that? I guess the only way you can do it is by not watching. But the problem is most mainstream media is trying to entertain. They're not trying to tell you. I don't know if you ever watch mainstream media, right? If it's local, it's almost always one of 2 things. If it bleeds, it leads, right? 3 people shot today. I mean, that's going to lead, right? More than anything else. And then a feel-good story. Puppy found his way home after a year. Oh, let's look at the family hug the puppy. Those are the 2 stories you see constantly on local news. And any national news is just blatantly biased. Literally, the shows from 8 to 11 or whenever the shows are now, I can tell you what the show is. Here's the exact show. So here's something that happened. My monologue on this is opposite person of me is bad, right? If I'm on CNN, I say the Republicans bad. If I'm on Fox, I say the Democrats bad. Then I bring on 3 people. With more reaction to this is guy who loves people I love. Tell me why I'm right. Oh, another gal who hates people I hate. Please tell me why they're evil. And that's the news. If you watch that news, so it's entertainment. I'm not sure there is news. I don't know. So I get where you're going. How do you do that? You know, how do you do that? Abby says, Larry, you don't have to lament anymore how terrible New York State is. My mother is 65 years old and can get access to the vaccine in New York City and can't in the area. She lives in New Jersey. New York can cheer. They're now the second worst state in the union. I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure that's true. Yes. So, all right. How have material and wages gone down, but costs up? Yeah, I think we know how that works. Absolutely. I think we know exactly how that works. Yeah, 100%. Yes. So let me, do you know exactly how that works? Yes. So, Itsoma, did I get that right? Itsoma says strangled by red tape. Yes. Stopped and stopped and stopped again. Bill Maher talked about it took him 3 years to get solar power in his yard, and he's rich and he's a lefty and he couldn't get it. 3 years to make it, to be woke, right? To get solar power. You would think they'd be running to do that. No. And he said it. It's all government red tape. He's getting tired of California too. You can't get anything done. Why would I want to feed that beast more? It makes no sense to me. Why would I want to feed that beast more? Doesn't make any sense. So Mike V says, Larry Sharpe, what are your thoughts on MMT, modern monetary theory as an economic solution to this? That's a separate show. Mike, I'm going to do that show tomorrow. Thank you for that. I'm going to do that show tomorrow. I will do MMT tomorrow. MMT is not a solution. I mean, well, okay. MMT is a terrible solution. How about that? It is a solution. It's a really bad solution, a terribly bad solution. And the worst part is more and more people believe that MMT is real. They think that it has value. They think that, it doesn't matter. And there are so many holes in the theory. I can't tell you how bad it is. It really is not a good theory. I can't. I'll cover it tomorrow. I'll do a show on it tomorrow, Mike. Okay. Let me write that. I'm gonna forget. I'm gonna do it on MMT tomorrow. Maybe I'll find an expert and I'll critique a video of it. I'll find an expert. I'll critique a video tomorrow. This way we'll do that. Yes. Thank you for the question. I'm not trying to dodge you. I gave you a general idea, but it takes a whole lot more to go through it. It's not just 2 seconds. So there we go. So all right. Danny says, Larry, you're always a positive person. What are your thoughts on people struggling to stay positive in a war with lockdowns, COVID passports, etc.? I was just talking about this. I mean, just talking about this. The reality of it is you have to just start looking forward, not backwards. That's the key. The more you say, it used to be, I used to have, I used to do, the less positive you're going to be. You want to still say, what can I achieve? What can we do? How can we work this? What can I do that's right? Taking charge, right? It's the oh geez, what's the name of that? The prayer. I'm gonna get, you guys will know when I say it, you know what I mean. I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's God give me the power to change what I can, the patience, is that what it is? The patience to deal with what I can't, and the wisdom to tell one from the other. I got it wrong, but you'll get my point. The more you can look at what can I change and how can I change it, what can I leave alone and what I can't change. I can't change the past. That's done. The more positive you'll be. The more you can see something on the other side. The more you have something to move towards. In my opinion, 2 types of goals only that are valuable. Short-term and long-term. I'm not a medium-term goal guy at all. I think I get in your way. Short-term, what can I get done this week, this month? Long-term, where do I see myself in 3 to 5 years? That's how I see it. Long-term and short-term. The rest, just keep moving. Just keep moving. That's what I mean. So, Mike V says, Larry Sharpe, too young for the shops, 45 and up. I'm over 45. I am over 45. I absolutely am. So I am not yet. We'll see though. Yes. There we go. Let's see. Hold on. Let me go here. Did you hear the Guardian reported that black gun ownership is up? Yeah, I knew that, Paul. I did. I was very aware of that. I've been talking about it, right? That's the issue. I want the face of 2A to not be the same guy that we think of it, right? It's always like an older white guy with a baseball cap and a beard. That's the face of 2A. Not that it isn't 2A. That is 2A also. But it's also other people too. And if the face of 2A is a darker shade, it will make America feel like, oh, this is different. And I want America to feel, oh, this is different. Maybe I should leave this alone. Yeah. So that's what I think. I'm glad. I want to keep doing it. I think we should. Absolutely. So, all righty. I want to show something else if I can real fast. It's another thing I want to bring up here. This is another piece, and maybe we're going in the right direction here, but it's a sad story. It's a story about a guy who went to prison, but now he's out. This was on Smirconish this weekend. You'll see. Let me just show it to you. You'll see what I mean by this one.
Is long-term solitary confinement for prisoners on its way out?
Mm-hmm.
On Wednesday, New York became the latest state to put new limitations on the practice. The bill restricts prisons and jails from holding people in solitary for more than 15 consecutive days and forbidding the practice entirely for minors and people with disabilities, among others.
This is not a bad deal at all. Well done, New York. I got to say we did something right. We are falling apart when it comes to massive building infrastructure, massive spending, all these things. But man, I feel like the country's finally making a shift. And you want me to stay positive? I'm staying positive right now, Danny. I think we're moving towards better criminal justice reform. It still sucks, but I feel like it's getting better. We shouldn't be putting people in solitary confinement for years. Well, Larry, we don't do that. Yes, we do. We put people in solitary confinement for years. Yes, we do. And it's a story about a horrible story. Listen to the story.
Had such a law been in place in Florida in 1992, it would have dramatically altered the life of my next guest. When Ian Manuel was 13, he participated in a robbery with some older kids and shot a woman in the face. He was charged.
Yes, I want to be clear. He was 13, hanging out with older kids, shot this woman in the face. Now, she lived. He didn't kill her. Shot her in the face, and she lived.
Charged as an adult with armed robbery and attempted murder.
They charged him as an adult at 13. Charged him as an adult at 13. What is wrong with our country, with our nation, with a prosecutor who would do that? As an adult at 13, 16, 17, maybe 13. And there were older boys there. Come on.
Told to plead guilty to get a lesser sentence of 50.
So he was told to plead guilty to get a lesser sentence. What kind of lawyer do you think a family has when their 13-year-old kid is on the street with a gun? How much money do you think that? They had obviously an overwhelmed district attorney, if that. If he even was 13, did he even know to talk to a lawyer? Or did a prosecutor talk to him in a room by himself and go, you're going to go to jail forever, kid. You better admit to all this stuff. So instead of punishing the older teenage boys who clearly duped this kid in doing it and putting them away, they put this kid away. I'll tell you this again. Some garbage judge thought, you know what the right answer is? Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for a 13-year-old kid. He thought that was the right answer. Yeah, that makes sense. You're 13, life without the possibility of parole. And I want to be clear, no one lost their life here. I want to say it again. No one lost it. He did a terrible thing. He shot a woman, but she survived and she's okay now. So she recovered. It's bad. Should he be punished? Of course. But life without the possibility of parole. What a piece of garbage judge. I hope that judge died a very slow death. What a terrible thing to do to somebody.
When he was 15, he was punished for behavior and sent to solitary confinement. He remained alone in that small windowless cell for 18 consecutive years.
They put a 15-year-old kid who rebelled because he was 15. He was in Gen Pop, general population, in a violent prison. So he rebelled, and they thought the right answer was 18 years of solitary confinement. This is our prison system. This is our system.
He's a free man today because the Supreme Court ruled in 2010 in a case called Graham v. Florida that juveniles could no longer be sentenced to life without parole.
Yeah.
For non-homicide.
So, yes, I want to be clear. They sent him life without the possibility of parole. He was a minor and nobody died. The amount of stories I've heard like that. Guy gets 15 years in prison because he had a gun at a robbery. Nobody died, didn't discharge the gun. He was 15 years old. He did 15 years. A kid had a gun at a crime, didn't discharge, no one was shot, no one lost their life. 15 years in prison as a 15-year-old. This is our prison system. This is our justice system.
And then after he was resentenced, the woman he'd shot, Debbie Bagrey, petitioned for his release.
The woman who he shot forgave him, and we couldn't. I want to say that again. The woman that he shot, she found it in her heart to forgive this kid. She was like, I know you shot me, but you were a kid. I forgive you. And I took the bullet. I took the bullet and I forgive you. But our state, no. Punishment, solitary confinement, life without the possibility of parole. But the woman he shot, she has enough heart to forgive. State won't.
He was finally released in 2016. He writes about how he survived in an upcoming book called My Time Will Come.
This is book. If you care, you can read his
crime,
book.
Punishment, Hope.
But what he talks about in this is he was actually punished because he talked back to guards because he was a stupid 15-year-old kid. Another knucklehead. Yeah, I was a knucklehead too. Luckily, I didn't shoot anybody. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying he shouldn't have been punished. I mean, even if you're 13, you shouldn't be doing crap like that. And you shot somebody. I got it. But life without the possibility of parole, when he cops a plea deal. So he cops a deal. And some judge is sitting there going, oh, you're 13? No, I'm sure you got a good lawyer. And I'm sure you copped the plea deal. Oh, you shot somebody? Oh, life. Why wouldn't, and of course, here's the thing. How does that look? He's a young black male. She's a young white girl. How does that look? Does it make our system look any better? Do you imagine what does that make? What does that make everyone think? Oh my God, racist system. Of course, it's right there. It's screaming at you. Why was no one in our system saying, what are you doing? This reminds me of when I talk about one of the reasons why I love Gary Johnson so much. And I know people don't like Gary Johnson. I don't care. I love Gary Johnson. I wish he was president now. He said something to me. He said when he was thinking of deciding what judges to nominate, he would ask them a question. And the question was, all right, if, let's say, for example, the legislature, this is when he was governor of New Mexico, legislature passes a law that says if you are convicted of graffiti and you are a minor, 17 years old, 16 years old, and you're convicted of graffiti, that there is a mandatory sentence of death. The mandatory sentence is death penalty. And you're a judge. And it's criminal. And it happens. The jury convicts a 17-year-old of graffiti. And you are now legally mandated for the death sentence. That you have to give him the death sentence now. That's what the law says. What do you do? And he told me, he said, if the judge says anything other than, well, it's the law, so I give him death, he's okay. But if he says it's the law, death, he wouldn't pick him as a lawyer, as a judge. Because at one point you got to go, it's wrong. I'm not going to do it. He can say, I'll resign. He can say, I'll break the law. He can say, I'll find a way to get around it. He can say, whatever, I'll delay it, whatever. As long as the answer isn't execute the kid. This is where we are sometimes. I find so many people who just worship the law, particularly those who are in it. They just, well, that's the law. The law is that, so therefore it's good. Legal doesn't mean wrong. It means illegal. They're not always the same at all. In fact, most of the laws that we make now, current laws, most of them, none of them are wrong. Almost none of them are. Now, the current laws, most of them are just controlling people and don't do stuff because I'm mad. That's most of the laws now. So anyway, I wanted to bring this up because there is one thing where we're doing well. So here's your good news, Danny. I think we're getting better. We're finally seeing how broken our justice system is, and we're moving in the right direction. Whatever you think about criminal justice reform, I would hope that no matter who you are, you wouldn't think that the right answer for a 13-year-old kid for shooting somebody and not even killing him would be life without the possibility of parole. How cruel are we as a world to think that's the appropriate system? I don't get it. So anyway, I'm going to grab a couple more of these if I can. All righty. Let's see here. Sam says people like government programs in their area because it brings jobs. People feel like they're getting their money's worth from their federal, state taxes. This makes more taxes and waste. You're totally right. It does feel good. You're right. And I see it sometimes. They would like to, put a sign up, your tax dollars at work, New York City on it, that kind of stuff, right? Like you're making stuff happen. So yeah, I think you're totally right. It doesn't actually work, but it does feel good. It does feel good. But not just that, right, Sam? If I'm a assembly member or I'm a congressperson and I can come back and go, see, here you go. Look, I brought jobs back home. I signed that bill, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So, let's see. DA Harass, I don't know who that is, made streets of Florida so much safer by putting him in solitary. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So much. Yeah. Everything's better now that he's in solitary. Now it's all good. It's terrible. So yeah, thank you. Roro. Thank you. The Serenity Prayer. That's what it's called. Thank you, Roro. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that cannot change, the courage to change things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you, Roro. That's what I did so poorly. Thank you for putting it out there. I appreciate that. Jonathan got it too. Yes. It's called the Serenity Prayer. Thank you. That's what I meant. I think that really is a way for us, to deal with that issue. So good. Mike says, Dr. Stephanie Kelton is the SME. SME is the subject matter expert on an MT on YouTube. Thank you. I will check her out, Mike. I appreciate that. I'll check her out and I'll see who else. And I got to also find a decent video that I can talk over so that we can make it interesting. Also, I don't want to bore you guys to death either. I don't want that either. Yes. So, all right. Larry, should we abolish the CIA? What are your thoughts on intelligence? How do we defend ourselves without a CIA? I didn't say we should abolish the CIA. And we can defend ourselves without one, though. But no, the issue with the CIA is twofold. One, there should be an assumption that something is not secret, and we've changed it, right? The idea is you assume that it should be somehow redacted or held, and you have to prove that it isn't, or that it shouldn't. You have to prove that it isn't secret or that it isn't, privileged or something like that, right? I'm saying you change the entire way. It is assumed to be private. You, CIA, must have a reason for it to be secret that you present. Nope, you must have a reason. And if you're wrong, you can be punished. That's the issue, right? That becomes a fraud issue in my view. And that's the problem. The problem is with CIA has too much power. And the biggest thing they have is no transparency. They say, well, Larry, how can they do clandestine things and be transparent and not be, and be transparent? Well, first off, why are we doing so many clandestine things? It's the one issue. Why are we doing it? Why do we require such a strong CIA? Well, there's people who are trying to kill us. Yeah, because we're in their country and because we bomb them and because we put pressure on them and because we have things like sanctions on them and such. If we stopped all that stuff, if we actually learned to end the Cold War when the Cold War ended, we might not be in Cold War II right now. But because we didn't know how to end Cold War I, we didn't realize that it ended. We kept the entire CIA infrastructure. This goes back to the idea of, well, when does a government agency get smaller? The CIA was probably necessary during the Cold War against the KGB, right? That was probably made sense then. After that, what do we need the CIA for? For what? I'm not sure it made sense then, but I mean, at least you can make an argument. Once the Soviet Union collapses, what do we need the CIA for? I don't know what we need that for. You want to do a cyber attack? Don't need the CIA for that. Or if you want to use them, I guess you could use them for that. Turn them into the cyber agency. I guess you could do that. That might make sense. So we decided, well, we can't keep spying on others. We'll spy on ourselves. That'll work, right? The CIA is not supposed to, do work in country. It does. But anyway, so I'm not saying we should abolish it at all. I think we should adjust it and shift it. I don't think it needs to go away right away. I mean, it might. If you could fulfill other duties with other branches, I think that could work. You could do it, but I'm not sure you'd want to. The other thing is we do have a culture of it being a central repository. So I think you might want to get rid of NSA and kind of turn the CIA into the NSA, if that makes any sense. And then get rid of that surveillance thing. Just make it a hub. So I think it can be modified is my point. So, yes. So Paulo says, haven't I heard of MMT since I took macroeconomic theory? Yes. It is the modern monetary theory. Yes. Modern monetary theory. It basically says we can print all the money we want. Yes. I like Bill Maher. We disagree on much, but have some common ground. Jonathan, Bill Maher used to be, back in the day, far more libertarian. So he was more. I think that's wise. He still has in him, right? There's like Darth Vader has some good in him. He's got some libertarian in him still, and we just got to pull it out of him. And I think now he's starting to move towards that libertarian streak. Recently, if you saw him, he was fighting the ideas of mandatory vaccines. He was fighting the idea like, well, do we really want them? Do we know which ones we want to take? He was fighting that a bit. He's pushing back on government. He's pushing back on taxation. He's been pushing back on a lot of this. He really has been. So I think there is some of that in him still. Absolutely. So let me grab some more of these. I do appreciate all the serenity prayers, guys. Tom says, how many people do you think have compromised immune systems and leveraged the vaccines? Are we going to give them a scarlet letter since they can't get a quote unquote freedom passport? Yeah. I'm actually not sure about that. I think you're going to have to make exceptions, right? So I guess you get a special passport that says exception. So you'll jump through hoops to get the special stamp that goes, I'm special, whatever that is, because there's always going to be people who don't fit the mold for whatever reason, whether it's compromised immune system or allergic or genetic or, whatever the case may be. And the question is, will they then make that exception religious also? Or will they only make it medical? If it's medical, then does a doctor have to do it? So then the rich would just pay doctors to get off of it? I'm rich, here's money, doctor, stamp. I guess, yeah. So David says, hell yeah, I'm pro 2A here. Absolutely, there we go, yes. James says, lockdowns are definitely taking away purpose from many people. It's really devastating. I agree completely, James. I can't tell you how much I agree with this. This is a massive problem. As you have more and more people who don't know why they're getting up in the morning or get up in the morning and start falling into self-destructive behavior, right? Putting on weight, starting to have bad habits, not washing, insert thing here, right? Whatever is the bad thing that they start doing. And then how do you break that habit after a year, right? I remember, it's going to sound so funny with my showering. I had to rethink my showering in my own world. It sounds funny, but I went out often before the lockdowns. I went out often. I was in the subways almost every day in Manhattan, running around, it was often. And I'm the guy who showers before I go out. So I never had to think about showering, right? Maybe on a weekend I might skip a shower if I'm laying around the house all day. One day I might skip a shower. But usually I was showering every day. Or here or there, again, I might miss one on the weekend or something. But even when I went out on the weekend, I would still shower. So here or there, it was a daily thing. I didn't have to think about it. I just did it. All of a sudden, the lockdowns come. I'm like, it's been like when did I shower? Was that Tuesday? I don't remember when and all of a sudden things change. And I had to rethink how I handle that. And that becomes a habit all of a sudden. So now you find those issues happening. I think it's nothing but bad. And then what about people who were looking for work and couldn't find it? For those of you who've been looking for work, you realize at one point it becomes soul crushing when you can't find it. It becomes, why bother? You can't take the rejection anymore. You can't take, as just a human, the constant the negativity. And before you know it, it's just, why bother? Why bother? And that becomes hopelessness. That becomes helplessness. That becomes self-destructive. That's just how it works. The damage from the lockdowns, I talked about this last year about this, is going to be worse than the actual disease itself. Absolutely. Yes. So what's one thing that conservatives and libertarians could do to start seeing eye to eye? Is something that each side would have to compromise on? Yeah, I think there is. I think both sides would have to have more of a live and let live concept. Right? Most conservatives don't want the government to bother them. Makes sense. But then also too many conservatives now want to impose that upon others. And that's when we fight as libertarians. Right? So, yeah, I don't like this, so let's not do this. Libertarian goes, okay, don't do it. So let's pass a law so nobody can do this. Whoa. We didn't say all that now. We didn't say you can't pass a law to make everybody else not do it too. You don't want it. I'm in. I'm not going to put any pressure on you to do what you don't want to do. Don't do it. But I'm not going to let you pass a law that says everyone has to act like you. That's where we often have a problem, right? That's one of the biggest issues. The other issue is there are many conservatives who simply don't even accept that there is a problem with America. Like there's no problems. If just these lefties would stop talking trash, we'd be perfect. That's how many conservatives think. But there are actual problems in America. And many conservatives don't want to handle those problems at all. Like I know conservatives who don't want to even allow businesses to help build infrastructure because why are we doing that? We got enough taxes. Just take it away from the people getting welfare. That becomes their answer, which is an answer that doesn't fit when you have people who've been accustomed to it and we've set them up for years. It doesn't work. So I think those are two places where it might work. So 18 years in the hole is torture. Yes, Paula, exactly right. 18 years for literally a kid. If you have young people in your life, if you're an uncle, a parent, a grandparent, godmother, godfather, imagine the kid that you care about, even younger sibling that you care about. And then that kid has to be locked in a windowless room for 18 years. How is that even a thing? But Larry, he shot somebody. I got it, but she's up and about and she's forgiven him. How can we be angrier than the person that he shot? How can we be angrier than the person that he shot? That doesn't make any sense to me. And why would we be cruel to a kid who was clearly caught up with a bunch of older kids? We should have hammered those kids who convinced this 13-year-old kid. Are you telling me, any of you watching, you listening, that you were so savvy and cool as a 13-year-old kid? And clearly his parents weren't around. That's obvious, or he wouldn't be doing that. So imagine you at 13 on the streets without parents, or without parents who are around. You're going to be making the savviest decisions. Not me. I don't think you either. You've been doing some stupid stuff too. So I would have too. So yes. So, oh sweet Jesus, I'm depressed now. No, he's out and we're getting better, Paula. He's out and we're getting better, right? We are getting better. I see this happening. Criminal justice it's slower than I would like it, without question, but it is getting better. Absolutely. Danny says, I love the positive on criminal justice positivity. Yes. After foreign policy and COVID, criminal justice reform and drug war is my next hot button. Yes, I think we've got a shot of making things better. Trump was better on criminal justice, right? He was better on it. Better than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to ignore it. I thought he was going to ignore it, but he didn't. So, yeah, good to go. That Trump's already better. New York State's getting better. I hope Biden will get better. I don't know if he will, but I hope they all get better. Yes, I think we do have a chance. So prosecutors have to prove that they have the balls so they can be reelected. Jonathan, you're right. Absolutely, you're right. And I wish we weren't that way. And I think we are getting better at that. And the problem is the pendulum is starting to swing because of stuff like this. The way Paul was talking, how she feels depressed, how I see this as being so horrible. Because of what these prosecutors have done, I think if you look, there's a lot of DAs that are being elected totally opposite. I mean, we are swinging that pendulum to where someone's like, I'm a DA, I will prosecute nothing. What ifs? We're going to that level. Now, I'm unhappy that we're going that far, but I am happy to change. And I think the pendulum's going to come back to being regular coming up here in a couple of years when we see what's happening, right? I talk about the New York State bail reform. I am very happy that we did bail reform. I think the pendulum went too far. I believed, and I said this years ago, and I was wrong on this one. I thought when it came out, the courts, since, go back. The New York State bail reform bill wasn't at all really argued on the floor of the assembly because the Democrats control everything. They put it up and they got it, and His Majesty signed it. Done. I thought the courts would then make some rulings over the next year, and that would then, they'd wind up fixing the law by default through rulings in courts. That's what I thought would happen. I said it, and it didn't happen. And I think what stopped it was COVID. The court shut down, and everything shut down. And this became something that they wanted people out. They wanted to get the people out. COVID changed everything, even that. So I'm hoping, though, that the pendulum is that it's gone farther. It's going to come back to the middle. But I am glad it's changing. In this case, I think it's actually going really fast. Then it says, speaking of the face of 2A, thoughts on Maj Toure. I'm a big supporter. I've been to his events. I've done videos with him. He's been on my show. So, yeah, big supporter. Love Maj. Yes. So, Mike V says he wasn't old enough to vote, but was old enough to be sentenced as an adult. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. 100%. Yes. Just crazy. Yes. So, his victim helped free him. Yeah. Yes, Paula. His victim was like, you were a kid. I forgive you. Right? He shot her in the face, and she had the heart to forgive him and help him get out. And we were like, no, keep him in. Why was that even a fight? Like, why was that even a battle? I don't know why that was even a battle. Why didn't the governor go, wait a minute, he shot you? Yeah. He was 13. Yeah. You forgive him? Yeah. How long has he been in solitary? X number of years? Why is he still in jail? Pardon? Get out? Go? Let's help this guy get out. Let's give him a little bit of a life if we can. So, and the guy wrote a book. So he's doing something right. So good for him. So yes, by default, cruel and unusual punishment. I completely agree. Yes. Rose says judges are another thing. We somehow need to figure out a way to remove qualified immunity from judges, DAs, lawyers, any government official that has QI should have it revoked yesterday. Ro, my idea of removing qualified immunity is from everybody. I agree. From everybody. Yes. Everybody. Qualified immunity from everybody. Nobody is above the law. We say that's true. Then we let all our priests of our law and all our, Praetorian Guard of the church, we allow all of them to be immune. No, nobody's immune. I'm with you 100%. Well, thank you for that. 100%. Yes. So let me see if I can grab a couple here. Let me keep going here. All righty. Drug war is not going away. Drugs are the greatest thing for child sex traffickers. Tammy, I hope you're wrong. I really hope you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I hope you're wrong. I would like this to end as soon as it can possibly end. As soon as possible. Because the war on drugs, you're right, does help sex traffickers, child and adult, both. Trafficking, period, including child sex, but including all trafficking. You are completely correct. And the problem we have right now is I'm hoping, I should say, I'm not sure on this one. The taxes we're putting on cannabis still encourages the black market. And there's still going to be a black market on cocaine and heroin and opioids. So we haven't ended the war on drugs. Are we moving towards this? Yes, we are. We are moving in that direction. And I hope soon that will end, because you're right. If we actually end the drug war, both in those foreign countries in Central America and here, the amount of trafficking, human trafficking, to include child sex trafficking, but human trafficking in general, will be reduced tremendously. It won't make financial sense anymore, right? And I know that sounds horrible, but clearly, if you're a human trafficker, you're not concerned about morals, right? If you are in that field, you're not worried about morals. So the moral issue isn't going to affect you, but the dollar issue will. That will affect you, right? If you're a sex trafficker, you're doing it because you make money. You don't care about the kids. You're clearly immoral. You don't care, but you do care about the cash. So if we make it to where it doesn't make money, they'll do something else. So hopefully get caught. Yes. So, all right, let's see here. Let the murderers out and them kill again. Love it. New York State reform was a joke, is a joke. Yeah, that thing is one of my point, Tammy. I think New York State went a bit far. Agreed. But I'm still glad they went. I really thought it was going to be fixed. Right? As I say, I'm not always right. I'm often right, but I'm not always right. And I think COVID really made it just not happen. It just didn't happen. And it should have been adjusted without question. But in the case of this kid, he wasn't the murderer. She lived and she forgave him. So that wasn't an issue. So in this specific case, Tammy, but you're right. There are cases when that happens, but in this case, that doesn't apply. So, all right. Let's see here. He just signed the HALT bill, making all corrections officers' jobs much more dangerous. HALT bill. Let me look at that, Wayne. I don't know what that is, to be full with you. Let me go look at that and see what that is, because I remember when I was running for office, I visited prisons, many of them, and talked to corrections officers. I literally was outside during the break. I would shake hands, say hi to them as they came out, and let them know that I support corrections officers. You can't fix, and this makes people on the left angry when I say this. You can't fix the prison system without corrections officers as part of that plan. It doesn't work. You can't do it, right? When I go into a company and I try to fix the company and the culture, I can't fix the company culture without talking to the people who are directly on the ground doing the work. Who knows more about the prisoners than the corrections officers? My father was a CO in Rikers Island. So I've always had a soft spot for COs, and my mother was a convicted felon who did time in prison. So I've also had a soft spot for prisoners. And I know that both are, need to have rights, and both need to be part of the solution. In this case, the families of the prisoners actually probably should have more of a say in this case, along with corrections officers, because many of them by default are feeling the punishment and pain of their loved one being in prison. So there has to be a connection with both of them. And there hasn't been in New York State at all. I don't see our governor or our executive branch at all even talking to corrections officers or the families of those people who are in prison. Neither of them. It's just make COs bad, make rules that makes it hard for them, punish them whenever possible. For those who don't know, the average life expectancy for a corrections officer in New York State is 58 years. 58. Every corrections officer I met, I tell a story often, but I can't tell it enough because it bothers me so much. Every corrections officer I met, every one of them, and I met dozens of them, knew someone who committed suicide. Everyone. Every one of them knew somebody who committed suicide. What kind of world is this? Right? What kind of world is this? Where that's what you live in. Many of them were addicted to some kind of substance, alcohol, opioids, something. Sorry, I should stop that. That's incorrect. Sorry. Many of them knew someone who was. Wow. I apologize for that, COs. That was a slip of the tongue. I was still doing the same way. Many of them know someone who is. That's how bad it is. Many of them have that kind of problem. Divorce rate, insanely high. They bring that stuff home. And I had lots of plans to fix it and make things better. Sadly, corrections officers didn't vote for me. They should have. They should have. They were told they got to vote Republican or vote Democrat or whatever, or what they were told what they were told by their people. But in reality, they should have voted for me. Because and I say this all the time, well, Larry, you wouldn't have won. Yeah, maybe not. But what if I'd actually gotten, instead of 2%, I got 10%? Just 10%, 15%. I'd be on the news right now telling people my stuff because that would have been impactful. New York State, you had a shot. Corrections officers, you had a shot. Absolutely. So anyway, Jason says maybe the victim should recommend the punishment. People said that before, and I'm a little bit worried about that. I am a little bit worried about that because then they can easily be intimidated, particularly in gang warfare, to recommend nothing. So I'm concerned. There's some holes in that one, but maybe more input would be better. But yeah, absolutely. So, all right. The war on drugs got a lot of people elected. Oh, is that true? Yes, absolutely. That is true. 100%. Yes. So Dan says, I completed the police accountability survey. Thank you, Dan. And you gave me the perfect time for me to say that. Guys, if you like what I'm doing, then please support my sponsors, theadvocates.org. Head over to that link right there. Click on that link and take the police accountability survey. Take that survey. What do you think was going on? Look, George Floyd, stuff's happening right now, right? We're talking about criminal justice reform. Perfect time. Let people know what you're thinking about it. Please take it, finish it, and share it. Take it, finish it, share it, click it, finish it, share it. Do those three things. It's free. It takes about 5 minutes. It's free and it makes my sponsors very, very, very happy. Say, Larry, I don't got time for that. No worries. Then give me money then. You don't have time to give me? Okay. Then give me some cash. Head on over to patreon.com/sharpeway. And guess what you can do? Give me $10 a month, $25 a month. Let me keep going so I can keep doing this. If you like what I'm doing, you like the conversation we're having, then do that. Support this show that way. And if you say, Larry, I don't got the time, I don't got the money either. All right, fine. Like, comment, share. You got time for that. You're here. Click that like button. Click that share. You got time for that. So if you don't have the cash, I get it. A lot of people are struggling now. I'm not fighting you for cash. You don't have it, I got it. You can like, you can comment, you can share. That you can do. If you got cash, throw me some. If you got getting those cool Biden bucks, help me out so I can move this thing forward to the best of my ability and pay my team even more so they can keep going. Also get some ads in this thing so we can keep this thing exploding. More people know what we're talking about. I love that. And of course, take that police accountability survey. And the last piece, don't forget to follow me on things like Twitter and such. It's important. Absolutely. So, all right. So let me keep going here. Nick says, Christine says, it's ridiculous that pot is still a Schedule I narcotic federally. 100%. That should have come off immediately. And that was my whole point. The second you become an executive, you become president, take it off. Just executive order, off. It's not there anymore. End it. Absolutely. Without question. Yes. Logan says they overtaxed weed here in Canada and dealers are making more money than before. Yeah, you don't get to keep your dealer, right? That was my entire pitch, right? You like your dealer? Keep your dealer. That was exactly my entire pitch. And people didn't get it. Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So, all right, here. 10 Minutes says we have several officers in New York corrections and live until their 80s. That's great. Tammy, I'm so happy that, and what lived to their 80s, they retired many years ago, probably 30 years ago or so. It wasn't as bad then. So, but yeah, I see your point. Yeah. I'm glad. I wish every officer lived into his 80s. That'd be amazing. I would love that. Yeah, I would love that. But if they're in their 80s or died in their 80s, they retired at least 30 years ago. So things were different without question. Yes. We'll have to see Larry and Tim Pool's podcast. Well, why don't you guys tweet him or email him or tell him? Get in his show and say, hey, get Larry on there. I appreciate that. Absolutely. We should do that. That'd be awesome. Yes. So Jonathan says, Mr. Larry, I was reading a paper on the tech giants and free speech. Author indicated antitrust laws, as now understood, is a bastardization of their original intent. What do you think? Is it worth for me to look into? Antitrust laws. You know, it's funny how many laws were originally made to protect the consumer, but then wind up protecting the company. An example of that, by the way, is intellectual property laws. Many intellectual property laws were made to ensure that the consumer wasn't fooled into buying a product that wasn't actually a real product. Like, they don't want you to have a fake Coke because they want the consumer to be protected. And if you want the Coke product, you get that product. And if it's something that's close to it, that you don't get fooled and you buy the wrong product. And that's become now, I own this property and you got to pay me for it. So it does actually make sense. I think I would look into it, Jonathan. I think I would. That makes sense. That's a common thing. Remember what most lawyers will say. They will say it doesn't matter what they meant. It matters what they wrote. Right? And I think that's very common. Yeah. I think you should. I think it's a good idea. I would say yes to that one. Absolutely. Have Made a Pedal says USA was a different country 30 years ago. That's true. We now live in a totalitarian regime. It's not the United States anymore. Man, I get where you're going with that completely. It does feel that way sometimes. I don't remember, maybe just because I was younger. I don't want to become that guy who's like, back in my day. I don't want to become that guy, right? But there's a part of me that feels it, right? I do. I feel that. Absolutely. I do feel that. But I don't know. I feel like we have surrendered so much because of fear, right? We're so afraid that we just give up our rights and it becomes the norm. And I think it hit home with me after George W. Bush. That's when it became clear. I mean, it was happening before him, but in my world, that's when it became clear, when he was like, my number one job is to keep Americans safe. I have to keep Americans safe, keep Americans safe. And I was saying to myself, that's not the oath that I took when I was a Marine. It's the oath he took when he was president. The oath he took and the oath I took was to protect the Constitution, to defend the Constitution. That's what I'm supposed to be defending with my life, not every single individual American citizen. That's why we have a Second Amendment, right? I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. But I think it happened big to me in my head, at least. And maybe people see it differently, or when they saw it. I don't know when you saw it. But that's kind of when I was like, oh, wow, that's where we are. And then Obama doubled down on that. And Trump doubled down on it too. And Biden's doing the same thing, right? In fact, Biden's saying we should, go into people's homes and take their, and take their guns because safety. We should, we should make a passport because, safety. We should do all these things because safety. That wasn't a thing before. So I see where you're going with that. I really do. So, all right, guys, a little short today. I got to jump on something else coming up here. I appreciate all the time and all the energy and all the input you guys put on me. As always, please, guys, like, comment, and share. It does matter. Patreon is always there if those of you want to support me so I can keep going. Tomorrow, I will do a show on MMT. We'll talk about that. I got a couple guests coming up here, too. I will see you all tomorrow.